is up, Los Angeles? This is Skinny T. Welcome to the Rams Skinny Podcast. Not here with my regular host, Ryan Dyrud, but I'm welcoming Chauncey Telese to the podcast. He is a longtime writer for the Los Angeles Football Network and a first-timer on the Rams Skinny. How you doing, Chauncey?
Long time, first time. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you on. We go way back. I think you're probably one of the few people in the LAFB that predates me joining the company. When did you come on?
God, 2017.
Wow, yeah.
I know. I
was
covering the Titans actually before I got to do the Rams beat.
Oh, but you've been a Rams fan.
Yeah. I picked the Titans because it seemed like it was going to be a fun year, and in fact, it was like the boring year, like before they got fun.
Right on. What was going on in Titans Nation at that time?
So LaFleur had just gone to the Tennessee as the OC, and then they had DeMarco Murray and Derrick Henry before he got good. And I'm like, oh, and then Mariota. So I was like, oh, they're going to try to do, Rams, but, in the South. And then that didn't happen because they were terrible and boring every week. And it was really hard to write the same thing every week. It's like, well, they're fun for a little while. And then.
Yeah, that's been the interesting thing covering the Rams, just having such high highs. And coming into these last 2 years, just writing about this team has been just a slog to talk about. They're bad again. They're bad again this week. What else do you want me to say, people?
And it's not even that, honestly. It's really annoying. There's the different factions of Rams Twitter. Like, I know it's a lot smaller of a population than you'd think, but like, Jesus Christ, it's exhausting. Like, you people can't enjoy anything. And I know there's been darker times, but like, God, just enjoy little things. Like, everything's a 5-alarm fire. You have like all the people who talk like they're living and breathing embodiment of like every CEO book ever. Like, they need to trade Kupp and trade Donald. And if you don't think that means you work for a company, you don't run a company. Like, okay, dude, like, all right, chill. Like, everything's either burn it down for the insurance money or things are just going too great. You guys are dumb.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's great. It's great advice for anybody on Twitter and social media in general. Is just chill.
Nuance is cool. You know what's cool? Nuance.
All right, yeah.
Not everything's a 5-alarm fire. I promise you.
That's a T-shirt. I think nuance is cool.
Sure.
How's the bye week treating you? What do you do for the bye week?
I mean, it was pleasant. It was just like, cool, I can just focus on fantasy. I don't need to worry about like Stafford or God knows who else throwing an incomplete pass. It's like, see, we're cooked. We suck. They need to fire everybody. Like, our title wasn't worth it. Like, see what happens when you F them picks. Like, oh my God. Like, every week it's like that.
This has actually been a debate that I kind of go over in my head. I'm a Minnesota Twins fan.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, Minnesota, other than the Lynx, if you're a WNBA fan, there's no championship since 1991. That was the last one. That was when the Twins won most recently. When I was a kid, I was born in '83. They won in '87. I remember that one. '91. That's like prime time. 8 years old or whatever. Just loving life, thinking that being a Twins fan was going to be that way. But I bring up the championship because you look at. Would you rather be a team like the Vikings, where they're kind of good, they're kind of in the picture every year, but they haven't won anything ever, really, and they haven't been good enough to even get into the Super Bowl, make an NFC Championship in a long time, and even their ceiling is capped, whereas the Rams busted through the ceiling, got the championship, everybody celebrates. And they came crashing down, but would you rather be a Vikings fan or a team like the Rams, where a fan of a team like the Rams, where you actually get to experience a full wonderful season of winning, where you're the last team that wins?
Well, Skinny T, I like championships. I don't like to be Charlie Brown every year and not know what happiness feels like. And what was it? The Packers game was like an idea of like, okay, you need to fire McVay. Samuel L. Jackson says so. It's like, no, they don't. Like this would only be his second losing season in 7 years. So 5 winning seasons, 2 NFC championships, 1 Super Bowl win. Not exactly a hack. Like, it's just so annoying. Like, do you not remember what things were like? And then you say that, and then it's like, oh, just because you had Jeff Fisher doesn't mean you should like hang on to somebody just because they make you feel like less bad. I'm like, that's not the point. Like, there's a culture here, and yeah, he has his ticks. Like, he's got some bad ticks. I'm not gonna sugarcoat that. They're there, but I wouldn't fire him unless you can tell me who you'd replace him with and who's a realistic replacement that you think would be better.
That's a fantastic question, because that's the same thing with the Stafford. We'll talk a little bit more about Stafford. But who else is out there that you're going to go out and get? And our colleague Jamal, he posed the question: should the Rams trade up and go get Caleb Williams in the draft?
No,
that's that one. I saw that was your response, and I just kind of You look over at Kansas City, and they're that team where they're just flying high, and obvious reasons. The comparisons to Patrick Mahomes are out there. We won't know that until he steps onto the NFL field. But if what would cause Kansas City to trade Mahomes? Would any team trade up at this point to go and get Mahomes, even 7 years into his career? And, it's impossible to say that he's going to be that at this point, but just kind of thinking about it in those terms, what do you think?
Well, first of all, Kansas City would never trade Mahomes under any circumstance whatsoever. Like, nothing. Even if they found out, like, some horrible, horrible thing was coming out about his personal life,
Sure.
Like, if nothing would get him to do that. They would do that trade every day, and there's no regrets. And there's no one in the draft. Like, I know everyone's like, it's like Penix, McDaniel, Caleb, Drake, but like, the Rams need a tackle, man. Like, that's where it starts. You know why Goff is good in Detroit? Because their line is good. Do you know why Mahomes is still good? Because they invested heavily in their line. Like, look at every quarterback. There isn't one like, well, they need a young quarterback that can scramble. Like, no, they need someone they can protect. There's no point in getting a franchise quarterback if you can't protect them.
Yeah, 100%.
It's boring, but like, you can get your guy in round 2, or trade up a little bit maybe. If, like, I don't know, Penix falls or McDaniel is available, whatever. Like, Caleb and Drake aren't the only two like NLBLs, right? Like, Caleb or Dismay for May aren't necessarily the ways to go.
I was liking your writing that you come up with a nice. I don't know. Are they puns? Are they?
I don't know. The NBA does that a lot, right? Like, it would be, oh God, like they didn't have a good one for Wembanyama, but usually there's always good ones because like tanking's a lot more prevalent in the NBA.
Yeah,
like,
it makes a lot more sense if you get one guy on a team of 11.
Well, yeah, they just have better names for them. So like, why don't they just do that for football? Like, they've kind of started doing that a little bit. And like, Caleb for Caleb is perfect.
Did you come up with that, or did you see that?
I did. No, I did not steal that one. That one was me. And Dismay. I just went Dismay for me because it's easy. Their names rhyme with stuff.
No, your mind works differently than mine, that's for sure. So you can come up with those the rhymes. No. That's what it is. It's not a pun, it's a rhyme. Come on, I can't even think of the word. Well, I think that's this kind of conversation leads into everybody's thinking about the future of this franchise.
Sure,
everybody's thinking this. The possibility of making the playoffs is down around 10% or so. I saw that on Sumer Sports they have a percentage, and 10% is right where they are, which is not where you want to be. So I think I'm not a proponent of tanking whatsoever. I think there's too many young guys on this team that need to learn
exactly
the Rams way. So I'm not a proponent of that, but there's definitely questions heading into next year. My mind is already starting to think about free agency, the draft, and things like that. But
sure.
I wanted to take the bye week to talk about some things that I think are they're on my mind at least. So, and I wanted to kind of pick the brain of one of the great Rams writers out there. So the first
thing, Ryan going to be on the night?
No, he went to Disneyland, as a matter of fact.
That's son of a bitch. I love Disneyland.
He's got yeah.
I know. I don't. Oh man, I'm jealous.
I've never been to Disneyland.
Oh,
I actually, is it waiting in line, paying a whole bunch of money for the
I mean,
privilege.
fine, I get that, but like, oh, it's so good. Like, I've been going since I was little, so like, I haven't been since 2018 because it's super. Actually, no, I apologize. I got to go last year for a work retreat, and it was one of the happiest days of my decade. It was like the Super Bowl and then Disneyland. Those are the two highlights of 2022 for me.
Yeah, you've
But
got joy in your heart, man. That's
actually, and
that's
actually,
great.
no, I hold on, no, I can't say that. The actually number one was when my son was born, but that's okay. Like, it's in the top three.
There you go.
It
Perfect.
vacillates.
So we're gonna talk a little Rams talk. I'm a big PTI fan. I think Tony
Sure,
Kornheiser is just the perfect personality that I wish I could be.
sure.
Uh, but no Jewish guilt, no bald head, so I'm stuck the way I am. But so big deal, little deal, no deal. Rams talk. First topic of conversation. Matthew Stafford, injured over the last couple of years, not a spring chicken. I think he's the second oldest starting quarterback in the league right now, behind Aaron Rodgers, who's actually not playing. Stafford's coming off his thumb injury. That's not the kind of injury that's a kind of age-related thing. But big deal, little deal, no deal. Stafford's age for the next couple of years for the Rams.
It's a big deal because it's not just that he's literally 1 year older than me. We're birthday twins. Yeah, I know. It's him, me, and Chris Rock. It's awesome. Uh, but it's like it's not the years, it's the mileage. If you're an Indiana Jones person, and he's got a lot of miles on him from all the years in Detroit, and then just the post Whitworth offensive line had just been brutal for him, and that shit adds up. Like that adds up quickly, and he's starting to tally him up. I was like, last year was his back, and then this year was his hip for a couple of games, and it's the thumb. It's like, well, if they don't protect him, or if someone just isn't able to play that week and he gets decked, like, well, then what happens?
Yeah, and I think we saw the kind of response by bringing on Carson Wentz as a guy that can. Hey, he's definitely not a starting quarterback. I think one of your and I early disagreements was Blake Bortles when they brought Blake Bortles on. Like I called him the perfect backup quarterback.
I totally forgot they had Blake Bortles.
Yeah. Well, not a lot of people spend much time thinking about the backup quarterback, but unfortunately, I do.
No, the Rams should have. By the way, the Rams should have. They should have thought about this earlier.
Oh,
Like I know
absolutely.
it was just a mistake, and I don't understand the Stetson Bennett pick. Like I don't get it. And the only time I'm okay with people going, well, we had that guy. Why didn't we get that guy? It was Josh Dobbs.
Well, that's
I mean, the
yeah,
Cardinals were a trade of this, I guess. So like, I don't know. Did they have him no, he wasn't on the roster last year. So I don't know. The Rams could have picked up somebody. Like Brett Rippon wasn't the guy. Stetson Bennett clearly has some problems. He's doing his 12 steps apparently, so that's good. But by the way, they still should have picked him because like that was kind of out there. So I don't know why they just abandoned the backup QB position. That's a little arrogant on their part.
Well, and it's a larger question about kind of Shanahan guys in general. Is can they actually assess a quarterback coming out of college as a good prospect or not? You think Trey Lance is gone? Jordan Love is not looking like a starting quarterback right now.
Well, Shanahan originally wanted Mac Jones.
Yeah, he's not looking great either.
No,
Shanahan did not pick Patrick Mahomes high in that draft. They could have picked him up. So, I'm also with you on this one. I think Stafford's age is a big deal, and I did a bit of a deep dive into stats of aging quarterbacks to kind of see where quarterbacks drop off. So I looked at Matt Ryan, Phillip Rivers, Ben Roethlisberger, Drew Brees, and I don't think any of them are necessarily great comps.
No, Ben is in this respect that like his is like the mileage really hit quickly, like when it went. Like Matt Ryan didn't get hit a lot, but Roethlisberger did, and Stafford certainly has over his entire career. So that's a decent enough comp. Except Roethlisberger's a bigger dude. Was always a bigger dude. That was his bag.
Yeah, Yeah, and I think that so it's not one for one, but there are recent examples of aging quarterbacks that kind of played into their late 30s, and for all of those guys, the statistic that dropped off was average depth of target.
Mm.
And with Stafford, that just doesn't apply. He is actually he has one of the best average depth of target of his career right now, but the stat that has dropped off for him is his throwing or his completion percentage, where he's down below 60% at one of the lower rates for his career, which I'm
But
actually writing.
how much is that about him though? Because there's three things that contribute to that. One is the running game is always is very hit or miss.
Yeah.
Two, his line just has been very piecemeal over the last 2 years, and three, just the play calling hasn't been of service to that. Like it hasn't been compensating for the deficiencies in the run game and the line. And it's teams are knowing like, okay, cool, like he's going to try to force it to Kupp too much, or he's going to try to force it to Puka a lot, and then there's not going to be a lot to Higbee or Tutu, and then when there is, they're not going to be prepared for it.
Yeah, no, I think it's a valid point, and I think that it's I'm currently working on a piece about the Rams' lack of screen game because one of the things that they've really struggled against this year is the blitz. They go from the 10th best offense by EPA to the 20th best when they're blitzed, and they just have no screen game. They tried it a bit with Kyren. He took his eye off the ball, so to speak, a couple of times, and they kind of went away from that. But you got a guy like Tutu Atwell. When you look at wide receivers in the screen game, Tyreek Hill is used a lot. The young Boston College Zay. I always mix up his last name with the other Zay. Zay Flowers. Thank you. Those guys catch a lot of screen passes, and also Higbee's kind of fallen off, so he doesn't have those sure-handed 5-yard easy screen passes that you look back at guys like especially Roethlisberger, Drew Brees, just dumping the ball off to Alvin Kamara and just able to pick up big yards. The last quarterback I looked at was Peyton Manning, just because his drop off was so evident, and his drop off, his statistical drop off anyway, came at completion percentage. And so I'm not on cooked watch. I'm not saying that Matthew Stafford is done or anything like that. But when the quarterback starts to get older, I do feel like you need to get him options like an Alvin Kamara, Tyler Higbee. Rewind 3 years ago, where he's just moving the chains, picking up 6-7 yards, just open in space whenever they needed him to be. And that we're just not seeing that kind of play calling. So with an aging quarterback, unless, if you just want him to rip it, I mean, we're just not seeing the same thing from Stafford. So any last thoughts on Stafford's age and all that?
I mean, with Manning, the drop off also, like the neck surgeries didn't help. Like that didn't, that really shot his arm in the end. Like he had 2 really good years after that, and then it just like that. And you never know when that's going to happen. And could that happen to Stafford? Sure. I mean, he already had the spine contusion thing last year. That was scary. But he's not retiring because he's still got like 2 years left on a massive extension. So he's not giving that up. That's why Roethlisberger hung around for so long, is because you're not going to you have to pay back that money.
Well, Roethlisberger hanging around probably isn't what Rams fans necessarily want to see.
No, but I'm just saying, like, that's why. They're like, why doesn't he just retire? It's like, because he's still due a ton of money, and you have to give that back. So they weren't going to do that. I don't care how much he's made. They're never going to give up, like, what, 40 million or 80 million in that if it was Stafford today. And, like, the dead cap would just be horrible. Right. Like, if they were to cut him. Like, people need to learn how cap works.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, money talks, as they say.
I know. And like, that's why they're going to be flush with cash next year, just because they took on a whole bunch of dead cap this year. Yeah. Which is something that's been very common in the last decade for us.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be fascinating to see what they do with this offseason and free agency, especially. And
I think, honestly, honestly, 25 is going to be like the last ride, and then whatever happens after that happens after that. Because I think Donald is probably retiring after next season because that's when his deal runs out. And then
Right.
Couple only have like 2 years. So if they're gonna make it the last run next year, they have to protect Stafford, and that's where the failing has been. Like he's not in a vacuum, not bad. Like he can still play, just they're not tailoring the offense to what they have right now and how to protect him and keep him going. Like it's
Yeah,
not as simple as he's washed. Like that's too simplistic.
I think he's having a fantastic season, and again, nuance is cool. We'll put that on a T-shirt. Sell in the shop. You mentioned Kupp, and what's interesting about his return after his injury is he had a couple of really fantastic games. First one out of the gate, he has.
I was there for that.
Oh, no kidding! Oh yeah, yeah,
duh.
of course.
God, how much fun did you have at that tailgate, man? Jesus.
I was working, so I don't know.
Man.
I didn't get to go to the game. I watched it at the Chili's across the street, which, hey, guys.
Oh, that's tough.
I do several unplayed plugs every week on this show.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to go, if you want to have a really great time and you're not at the game, go to Chili's across the street from SoFi Stadium. It is so much fun. Full of football fans.
I mean, if you can survive the menu, you're in good shape.
Oh, thank you. You got $3 happy hour Bud Lights. So like if you want to stay skinny tea,
chili,
baby barbecue sauce. Kupp had a fantastic game. That was the only game I think we've seen where Puka and Cooper were kind of utilized really well. They didn't end up winning that game, but that was kind of the best performance for the two of them statistically anyway, when they've been playing together. But in the last 3 games, Kupp has had fewer catches and fewer yards than he had in that one game. So big deal, little deal, no deal. Cooper Kupp's usage over the last 3 games.
I would say little deal, but you need to figure out a lot of it is the play calling and protection, right? Like there's like the post Kyren, they've been okay running the ball with Freeman and Hendo, but like the play calling has been such that we're just so erratic and inconsistent, and doesn't seem like once they get beyond like the first 10 scripted plays that they know what to do. Like it just seems like they're really trying to force speed things, and that's where the Stafford pick sixes happen, right? Like it hasn't been McVay's best year. I'm not on the fire him train. Again, tell me who you're replacing him with that you can guarantee would be better for the team and the culture wise, not to mention like play calling wise. But he does need to get that under control. Like one of his ticks is that when he gets behind a little bit or just panics a little bit, then he gets super conservative and then tries to force things and isn't patient. Like that's just part of the gig, and unfortunately, he's not willing to relinquish play calling duties, or whatever. He just needs to micromanage it. And I thought that would get better with Mike LaFleur being there, but it doesn't seem like that's the case. And I just think it's something that does need to be addressed in one way or another. And it's not Kupp's fault. It's not Stafford's fault. It's just the personnel the game plan isn't being tailored to the personnel that they have.
Interesting. Well, I'll answer it and we'll move on, because I think having a larger discussion about Sean McVay is where we should go with this. So I'm going to say it's actually a big deal, not in the way that people will think, though, because Kupp's usage when Stafford first joined the team was off the charts. And then last year, it went up even more. And there was just games where Kupp was just getting the snot beat out of him.
That's why he missed like the back half of the year.
Exactly. So, finding a complementary receiver, his usage coming down, I would like to see, more than 4 catches for, 38 yards or something like that. But, to your point, he's not necessarily being used correctly. I don't think. But so I think a big deal in that he is now a receiver over 30 years old. And he can't carry this offense like he did for the 1 year where he broke records and just had a phenomenal season. He's not
an MVP, but that's whatever.
Well, MVP is another discussion where if you want to have the best quarterback award, we can do that. But if the most valuable player doesn't necessarily mean that. Yeah, so I think that especially when you find out you have a guy like Puka Nacua on there, let's figure out if we could get those two guys to work well together as a complementary football team does. But I've actually posed this question to a couple of folks, and can you think of two receivers on a team that are as similar as Puka and Cooper are, that are used in a way that they're both getting touches and maybe there's a back and forth between games, but you know what I mean? Where
I do. I have an answer.
As McVay calls it, it's the champagne problems. He's got this problem that he's got two great receivers.
Well, I can tell you right now, the Waddle Tyreek combo doesn't seem to be having a problem with that. They're very similar dudes. Except Tyreek's obviously way faster, and Waddle's already a fast guy, but they sort of function the same.
No, that's a great answer. That's the best answer that I've heard so far. So, yeah, so I think it's a big deal, and this offense is putting up less than 20 points a game at this point. And
yeah, that's the thing. And some of it is play calling, but also Puka will have balls thrown to him that he should catch, but he doesn't. Yeah. Once they don't give Tutu enough targets in a game to where when it actually comes to him, he's prepared for it. This happens in basketball a lot. If someone's very ISO ball heavy, then that suddenly someone has to actually engage on the team. They're not prepared for it because I'm just used to standing here watching Harden dribble for 5 hours. Now I have to take a three. Oh shit! And then they miss it.
And it's in a way it's Tutu's rookie season. He's he hasn't been on the field really before this. A couple
last
plays
year
here.
He had some really big moments, but yeah, this is the first time they're okay, we can actually use you and invest in you. And because he missed his actual rookie because he got hurt in week 3 against the Bucks, and then last year it was I don't know, we'll try you for a little bit, and there was times where it worked, and then times where it just didn't because he didn't have an actual year to play.
All right, so McVay. McVay, I think he's a top 10, top 5 coach in the league currently, somewhere in that range. There's a lot more to being a head coach than just play calling and being an offensive genius. He came into the league so touted and so highly thought of, and he did that for a few seasons. He did that 2017, 2018, got embarrassed by a Belichick defense. Not the first head coach to have that happen.
No.
But we can psychoanalyze for sure, absolutely. But a thought that keeps popping up is he a one-trick pony? Can he only pull the trigger in certain ways? Using phrases like when I call running play. I'm paraphrasing here. When I call running plays, I feel like I'm wasting plays. Is basically what he said last year. And
I mean, in that case, it was true because they couldn't run the ball.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but you got a tool belt on, you got a couple of different tools in there, and you're not going to pull the hammer out to whack the screw in. And I'm just not sure. I think you've got a lot more invested in it than I do, and you've probably put more thought into it than I have. I just get stumped because it's at certain points, it seems like he knows exactly what he needs to do, and then other points, it's befuddling why the play doesn't work.
Yeah, I don't know. I just sometimes think he's so in his head with stuff. He tries too hard to make things happen the way he wants them to, and I don't think he's doing situational football enough. Week 1 was the perfect synthesis of what that team should be. Yeah. And I know it's a mirage. It was fake. It didn't matter. whatever. But that was
It's not.
look,
It's not
it's
fake, it's
no,
not
and
a
against
mirage.
against the Eagles, they did that, and they were hanging with the Eagles for a while, and then just the wheels fell off because they just would go away from what was working, and I don't understand why that is. Maybe there is stuff they're not seeing, or what I think Cooper Kupp mentioned this, like in an athletic piece, is like the second half adjustments are where they're getting bit. And they're like, we'll see stuff on film, and then we go into the game, and that's not what they're running against us. And that's been a problem. Like there's been an adjustment issue that they haven't quite addressed, and I don't know if the bye week is just the time for them to just step back, assess, and like when they were spiraling the Super Bowl year, that's what happened, right? Like they beat the Jags, they go to their bye week, then they beat the Jags, and then everything's fine. Like they settled the ship, but I don't know if they can do that this year because they don't have the horses to do it. It's going to be a matter of McVay like really taking a step back. What do I need to do? What's going on? And solving the adjustment problem in the second half, because that's where things keep going south, right? Like they were again, the Eagles, they were in it. They were down by like 3. I think it was 3 points. Like 3 or no, hold on. I forget. It was either a touchdown or 3 points. I forget.
Well, you can look it up while I go on my little rant about.
I'm not gonna. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I think that adjustments into the second half. I've said this point several times on this podcast where there was that famous statistic where Sean McVay, when he was winning, going into the second half, he was undefeated, which means if you're going into the second half tied or losing, that's where he's losing all of his games. That's the dirty, dark side of that wonderful statistic. Is that you think about the movies, you think about the great sports movies. They go into the locker room down, and the coach gives some speech, and the quarterback gets all excited, and they go back out there, and they get everything together, and they pull it out in the end. And it's like, where if you look at great coaches, the adjustments is where they're kind of make their long-term bread and butter. You think about Belichick. While you can say anything about where he is now, but you think about those Super Bowls where those were close games.
Yeah,
there's not many of them where they're just runaway winners of those games, and a lot of them come down.
None of them were blowouts.
Yeah,
none of their Super Bowls were blowouts.
He coaching whatever coaches it's the players that play the game, but they're the culture setters. They're the ones that are out in front, and they're the ones that have to fall on the sword and take the blame or get the glory. And you think about McVay, and there's just not a lot of those examples where they're just out of a game and they muster some courage and find themselves coming back. Baker Mayfield against the Raiders. That game I was at, and I've never seen SoFi drain of Raiders fans faster.
The NFC Championship was a good example of that. Actually, both of them, weirdly, like they came back, had to come back in both of those. And in the Super Bowl, they kind of had to come back a little bit because they lost a lot of people. They lost Odell. They were without Higbee. They were without they were without Cam Akers. Really, I mean, he was there, but not really there. And they were losing people kind of left and right. They had no one to throw to. Like they were relying on Bryson Hopkins and Hendo in that last drive outside of Cooper Kupp. Like Van wasn't really performing either. Like he was, basically on maternity leave at that point. Like that was a game where he had to really dig deep and like figure it out, and he did. And he's capable of doing it. I don't see why sometimes it takes like rock bottom for him to get going. Like even the Super Bowl year, they really hit rock bottom, and then all of a sudden, like he was able to pull themselves out of it, or pull them out of it.
Yeah, and that athletic piece by the great Jordan Rodriguez was fantastic about just talking about adjustments and how teams are adjusting to what the Rams do, and it doesn't seem like McVay's got the next card to lay down to kind of trump that. Whatever the adjustment is. And
it's not a problem exclusive to him, because they ran that stat when the Niners went on their 3-game losing streak. Like Shanahan has that problem too. It shows up in the fourth quarter more than anything.
Right.
Like if he's down by 10 or more going into the fourth quarter, they have problems coming back. I think they're one in God knows how many in those games. Or if they're like tied, it's a little dicier. Like for all of the the love the analytics community gives him, he still has that problem too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. He's kind of a different animal because he just kind of throws games away sometimes, where it just seems like he's fine with losing a couple games here and there throughout the season.
It's weird, that whole tree. Cause I forget who said it. It might have been like Heifetz or someone on the Ringer, but it's like McVay, LaFleur, and Shanahan all decided. Like Shanahan's like, I'm gonna try to win without a quarterback. McVay, I'm gonna try to win without a running back, and LaFleur, I'm gonna try to win without a receiver.
That's great.
I know. I was like, damn, that's true, man. That's the weird. It's like a weird devil's bargain they all made with each other. And then Zach Taylor is just kind of lucky.
Absolutely, getting a guy like Joe Burrow is,
just that whole offense, just the way it's developed. I mean, a lot of it's obviously him, but and then they have a really good defensive coordinator that no one's hired yet for reasons that remain unknown. But he's in a good situation where just all that seems to be working, and it's just see how that works.
I'm curious when the Lou Anarumo train's going to get chugging and somebody's going to finally realize he's a head coaching candidate.
I thought about this because I'm like, there aren't going to be a lot of jobs available this time. Like there was a huge coaching carousel last year. This one, not so much. I mean, maybe Antonio Pierce still keeps the Raiders job, and if not, they're probably not going to go with a defensive guy. I don't think. I don't know what the hell they do, and then I don't know which jobs are really going to be available because Dabble is not getting fired. Like all the bad, like Belichick, even if he's gone when he's gone, it's probably going to be Gerard Mayo. That's been the thing. The Chargers, I don't know what direction they go in, but it won't be like a coordinator. I think they're going to want like a big head coach, like Belichick, maybe. But other than that, I don't know which jobs are going to be available for him to have, or even Raheem to have, because Raheem is a big topic of discussion on Rams Twitter as well. Usually not in a good way, unfortunately, and it drives me insane.
Well, I mean, this is a topic for another day. I don't want to get into it, but you can
quickly touch on
it. What he's done with what he has on this defense is just incredible. I thought the Rams were just going to get run over by every team, by the running game, by the running back. I just thought you got Aaron Donald and Bobby Brown, who's done nothing. You got Jonah
Kobie Turner, man.
Yeah,
Kobie Turner fired young.
Yeah,
they were
huge.
They were two studs.
Huge, yeah. But going back to the coaching tree. I think that one of the things that plagues them is the smartest guy in the room kind of paradox, where nobody's pushing back on them necessarily, which I think a guy like Sean McVay needs a lot of. I think in that first game, I think LaFleur convinced him to run the ball more and kind of keep it.
Arizona one too. That's a big example of that. Like coming out of the second half, like fine, I'll run it. You want me to run it? Oh, actually, this works. Oh shit.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. It's like a point taken, and then the week after that, they just kind of like they'll start out like, oh, cool, he's running today. All right, and then it's like, oh, why are you abandoning this? This is fine. Like it's working.
Yeah.
But then I also just think like they're having the reverse problem that O'Connell had last year in Minnesota, where just like all the little breaks just went their way. Like Minnesota, like one of the reasons why they won the North is just because all the little like the fumbles like went into their hands, like all the close games they won, like they were just able to win. And the Rams just haven't had that luck this year. Like there is an alternate world, where they're actually not that touchdown isn't taken away from them in Cincinnati and they win. Yep. And the Pittsburgh thing, like that was annoying. And even like not the Eagles, I'm not going to use that. That one's insane. But like if they had come out a little bit better in the second half, who knows? Maybe. And then against the Packers, like if they had an actual quarterback playing, they probably win that game. Like, it's just so annoying how different their season could be. Like, it's not like the team's a trash fire like everyone thought they were going to be at the beginning of the year. Remember, we were supposed to have the worst record, us in Arizona.
Well, and that's why those losses early on, you think about the Bengals game specifically.
The Niners one, too.
The Niners one as well, yeah. Those are, you look at the game on paper and you're not thinking, oh, this is a winnable game for the Rams. But then as the game is playing out, you're like, oh, this is a winnable game for the Rams. And, I call it running through the legs of the giant. You're just a little guy and you're able to kind of squeak through. And with a Rams team like they have, like, it's so important to get those kinds of games where you just kind of you squeak it out, you run the trick play, you get the turnover, whatever it is, or you don't turn the ball over in the 49ers case, and it's but then you kind of the season just kind of moves along, and you've got an injury here, an injury there. Ernest Jones goes down, and you can't really. Then you come to the Green Bay Packers, and it's like that's a winnable game on paper or not on paper. That's a game that you can take, and 3 points is just not going to win a NFL football game in many situations. So then that Bengals game becomes much more important. And if they had won the Bengals game and the Packers game, the playoff chances jump up to like something like
the Steelers won. The Steelers won. They should have won.
Yep.
Like they blew that one. And I know it could go the other way too. Like, they could have blown the Cardinals game. They could have blown the Colts game, but they didn't. And that's the frustrating thing. That's why I get annoyed. It's like, well, this team has been cooked since week 2, man. I don't know what to tell you. It's like, no, they weren't. Like, stop it. Like, just stop. Like, I know it's more important to be right than to be logical, but that's the way it is. And it, again, drives me insane.
Yeah. I take mental health breaks from Twitter regularly.
Yeah. I can start doing that.
All right. So, you and I are in agreement. Ryan Dyrud is in agreement. This is a feistier team than it should be. We've talked about second half adjustments in games. We're heading into the second half of the season. Are there any adjustments that you're expecting that you want to see? And we'll finish it up with just kind of second half, last 8 games, record prediction. What do you think? How do you think this Rams team is going to finish up?
So outside of Cleveland, Baltimore, and possibly that last Niners game, all their games are winnable, super winnable. They have a Seahawks team that they already beat in week 1 in Seattle, and their line's going to be healthy again. And I expect them to come out swinging because they always play well against Seattle. Like, even last year when the wheels were off, they almost beat them both times. So McVay matches up with Carroll really well. Arizona, I know they have Kyler back, but we'll have Kyren back, and I don't think the Kyler Murray could beat them. Like, that Atlanta game was weird, and Atlanta is also not good on defense. The Rams are better than the Falcons on defense. I'm willing to say that without being a homer.
Absolutely.
Baltimore, Godspeed. Like, maybe it's the bad Lamar week. I don't know, but that just seems like a tough call. Cleveland, great defense, but Deshaun Watson, you don't know because he's also not that good. Like, he's rarely the reason why they win a game. So doable, but it'll be very hard. Washington is they're ready to move on to the next phase of their team. Like, Riverboat Ron's probably going to be fired the minute the season's over. The Saints, I don't know, man. Like, their defense is good. Their offense, not so much. Like, whether you have Derek Carr or not, their offense is very stagnant. So winnable. And then you have the Giants, who are still going to have DeVito, and that's an ideally winnable game. Like, that's not an easy win because it's the Rams, but they should be able to beat a quarterback who lives at home with his ma.
Yeah.
And then the Niners game, they might not need it. Like, I would be shocked if the Niners don't need that game. Like, if they have the West wrapped up and their playoff fate is kind of sealed for whatever reason. Like, they know what seat they're either going to be the 2 or the 3. Then does Shanahan pack it in? He probably should. Like, I'd be dumb to put out a team that is quietly a lot more brittle than people think in a meaningless game. So who knows? There's a world where the Rams could finish out with 7 and 9 wins. There is a world, but
what's
it
your
has
prediction?
to come. There's going to be a really stupid McVay game. I just know there's going to be. And it's going to be one where you kind of least suspected, like maybe the New Orleans one. I don't know. But so I'm going to say they get to 7 or 8. I'll go 8. Just because that last Niners game, I have a feeling that's like Shanahan might think, well, we need it because we could possibly get a 2 seed. I don't know.
Okay.
So 8 win. They go 8 and 9, and we're talking about how the wheels have come off, and we need to clean house or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm kidding. I'm half kidding, but they're with everyone had us winning 2 games this year, so 8 wins would be a massive victory and kiss my ass.
Love it. Yes. Okay. Yeah, I'm looking, you know, out of the bye week, Seahawks and the Cardinals, those are 2 wins. I'm not optimistic against the Browns. I think that defense
I
is
know.
just scary good.
Your hope is that it's just a bad offensive game, and Stefanski also like does a couple losable things every week. Like
Yeah,
there's always a couple moments where it's like, well, I'll throw with PJ Walker here. Is it PJ Walker or PJ Brown?
Walker.
Walker. I knew that. Okay. I'm gonna have PJ Walker throw instead of I'm just running the clock out.
Yeah, Ravens. I'm just putting an L on that one. They
No,
are.
that's what I said. Godspeed. If
Yeah,
if you get lucky and it's a bad Lamar week, cool. But like, I don't think so.
I think even in a bad Lamar week, this team is. They're just rolling right now. It's a few weeks down the road, but this is the world of predictions. So
Yep.
uh,
I'm not chalking that as a win.
Commanders, Saints, and Giants. I'm just gonna say, like you said, there's gonna be some sort of McVay. There's just going to be a bad game. There's going to be a bad Stafford game where he turns the ball over a couple times, probably against the Giants, maybe against the Commanders.
The run way too early. It won't be the Giants. The Giants, they're packing it in.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great point. So my where I come down on this is I'm saying 7-10 is where they're gonna end up. And I when you're not looking at it as a playoff, you don't look like a playoff team. I think you got yourself a nice middle round draft pick, and you look better than you thought you were going to look coming out of the season, or going into the season, I guess. So yeah, I think that 7. I've always said that the floor of this team is 6 wins for this season. I thought that was going to be the worst that they were going to come out of the season. So they come out looking a little bit better, and they should have taken that Green Bay game. Had Stafford been in that game, it would have been a whole different story. So, I think that my predictions are kind of falling in line with where they're headed. I don't know.
Yeah, and also just thinking about this, like they'd sweep Seattle and Arizona, presumably, like that would be a big improvement on last year. So you go like 4-2 in the division, not bad. And you probably should have been probably would be 5-1, maybe 6-0, depending on the Week 18 game. Because again, we don't know how much they'll need it or really want to have it.
For
like
sure,
they could just be like, okay, well, I guess we're a 3 seed. There's nothing we can do about it. Whatever. Because it's gonna be depending on the Eagles Niners game in like Week 15. It's gonna tell us if they're gonna play in Week 18 or not.
Yeah, that's a great call. Great place to end it. Plug your stuff. Tell us where we can read you or where we can listen to you.
I mean, you can read me on LAFB. It's a wonderful website brought to you by our good friends at Underdog Fantasy, and also listen to my show LA Confidential. It is LAFB's late night podcast. I call it because it's basically the last call of Carson Daly of podcasts. It's your Wayne's World. We do all the LA sports, Rams, Chargers, Lakers, Dodgers, a little bit of Trojans and Bruins. Then we cover anything going on in the world of superheroes, and then the movie world a little bit.
Excellent.
We share all the cool stuff we watch during the week, if there's anything.
Right on, man.
It's a fun variety show. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, it's like a late night AM radio.
Yeah, it can get a little AM radio-y. I would say it's more Wayne's World.
Do you ever? Oh, well, that's fantastic. So, one of the great movies of all time, definitely.
Oh yeah,
yeah, fantastic. Well, thanks for coming on. I was thinking about AM radio, and I was going to ask you, do you ever veer into like conspiracy theory talk, aliens, New World Order?
No. I have very little patience for conspiracy theory people. I just do. That stuff drives me insane. Like, because it's like, do you hear yourself? And do you hear how many how many knots you tie yourself in linguistically to prove your point?
So I like to try conspiracy theories on just as thought exercises, just to see where it takes my brain. Here's my favorite one that I've kind of developed for myself, and feel free to pick it apart at some time. But
sure.
Octopuses are aliens.
No, they're cephalopods. They're part of a larger animal species. Like, if there weren't other types, So, I mean, cephalopods are there's squids, there's octopi, there's other I don't know. There's tons of different kinds of animals in that family. There's way too many of that species for it to be aliens. It's not the abyss.
We don't know that though. We've never taken pictures of the giant squid, alive.
Yes, they have.
Alive?
Oh, dude. Yeah.
Well, there's been
footage of them swimming at the surface.
I don't know if I believe you.
Okay, it's on you. You can find it on YouTube.
Do your research.
Nat Geo. Okay, Big Nat Geo is feeding me propaganda that giant squids are real.
I like that part. That Big Nat Geo. That's my new conspiracy theory. No, nature doesn't exist. Actually, we live in a simulation. Hey, man, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
All right, Los Angeles, take it easy. Skinny T is going to be around twice a week going forward, always, forever and ever, probably. As long as there's the Rams, we'll be here for you. Take it easy. Thanks so much.